So, CATIA V5 and cultural heritage. Within the introduction, I will make an overview of the 3D asset that has been 3D scanned, is used as a case study over here. If you want to jump directly to the CATIA section, consider to click on the sections below the video. Now, regarding the 3D model, as you can see, this is available on Artec 3D Scan database. The model also has over here the uploaded version, which is available on Sketchfab. This is interactable, so we can interact with the 3D model. We can also change various elements over here. For example, I can enable the matte cap and I can visualize the model without a texture. So we see the geometry behind this. We can check the wireframe. This will be the wireframe that will be imported within CATIA. So we see that this is a triangulated mesh. There are no quads. So this mostly contains triangles. And we can also apply the final render, which will be the following texture. So this is a bronze-like texture. This is without post-processing, and this is with everything added. And this will be the diffuse color. So this is actually what the 3D scanner acquired. As you can see, this will be the RGB texture for this. Now, regarding the processing time, we see that this took almost 10 days. Keep in mind that this scan was made almost 10 years ago. So using, let's say, modern processing capabilities, this can be done a lot faster. As for the scanner, this was created using Artec EVA. This is a structured light scanner, as you can see over here. So this will not use laser. And it also will have cameras that will have 1.3 megapixel for the texture. But that will acquire multiple pictures that will be stitched together, and that will actually create that, UV mapping. So as we can see over here, this has been done, the 3D scanning for the 200th anniversary of Napoleon III to France, following his time of exile on the island of Elba. Now, the statue is available over here, so this is where it's positioned. So on the outskirts of Grenoble, there are multiple photos of that, as we can see it over here. And this is the exact location. If I will go on Google Maps, we're gonna see the statue will be located over there. If I will zoom out, we're gonna see the position on the map. So we're gonna see Grenoble over here. Okay, some other elements regarding this. As you can see, there are many equestrian statues of Napoleon that were erected during his lifetime, but they were later pulled down and used as raw material for other statues. For example, as the one for Henry IV in Paris. And there are at least 6 statues that survived, all dating from the second half of the 19th century. Now, let's take a look at the 3D models available on Artec. So within the free download section, we're going to see the license type. So this will be with attribution to 3D, to Artec 3D. And I will do that. I will put this within the video description. And the file formats available will be OBJ, WRL, and Maya. So Maya, this is directly within a software. This is similar to Blender, the software created by Autodesk. And this will be within that file format. So the file format will be .ma or MB, depending on the file type within Maya. But these 2 file formats over here, they will be universal. So we can make use of the OBJ or the WRL. Now, unfortunately, within CATIA V5, we can only make use of the WRL file. We can have the OBJ loaded within Imagine and Shape. But since this model is so complex, it will crash. So let's take a look at the WRL import. I will have this downloaded. As you can see, I will have this on my desktop. So I already downloaded it before, but now I will have it extracted again. And within that extraction folder, we're going to analyze the files that were created by a 3D scanner. So Napoleon W URL, I will search for the folder. This will be the newly downloaded one. And we're gonna see over here, so we're gonna have a text document. This is the license that will redirect this towards Artex since they created the model, as you can see over here. But we're gonna have the WRL, which in this case will be 854 megabytes, so quite a large file. And we're gonna see this will be the JPEG file, which will actually be the texture. If I will double click on this, we're gonna see that this will be the unwrap. So we see over here the horse and so on. So all the elements have been unwrapped over here within a 2D format. This will be the base. This will be the head of that horse and so on. So we see this is the mapping. This is the type of mapping that Artec does. It's not that easy to work with. As we can see over here, we're going to have a text. So overall, the quality for a texture is not that great. If you're going to zoom in, especially for the text, we're going to see those pixels quite fast. But if I will check the overall file, let's check the resolution. So right click, afterwards properties. We're going to go to details and we're going to see that this will be an 8000 by 8000 pixels. So this is around 64 megabytes of resolution. So it's not not low, but it's not that high for the 3D scan. But keep in mind again that this was created in 2015. So back then it was quite large. Now within CATIA, if I will just try to open that WRL, if I will just have this drag and drop within CATIA, we're gonna see that we have a warning over here. So invalid file format. And actually for WRL, we have to insert those as existing components. So I will need to go to File, New. I will need to create a product. And within this product, I can select it. It will become orange. I will go to Insert, Existing Component. And over here, I can add that Napoleon WRL. So I'm going to select it and I'm going to click Open. And now we're going to see that CATIA will start to load this file. And this is actually the only method that can enable textures within CATIA. And textures are really important for cultural heritage. Even though CATIA is mostly used for mechanical application, industrial application, and so on, we can make use of various elements even within cultural heritage. So we're gonna see that this will now load. This will take a little bit more time since this will be a WRL, because now CATIA also has to open that geometry, and that will be linked to the texture, to the unwrapped texture that we just previously saw before. It will take a little bit more processing time. I've opened the same model on my computer on Blender. So as you can see, this is the computer. The specifications are not that great. This was built 10 years ago. So we see an i7 with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And for NVIDIA, I have the GTX 970 over here. But I already have the model preloaded in Blender. Even over here, it took quite a long time to open it. Now, regarding the file size of the scan, I just went to File, Import. We're going to see the WRL. Keep in mind that the newest version of Blender doesn't import WRL file formats anymore. This is quite obsolete for now. But yeah, this will have the size of 2 meters. If I will press N, and if I check the dimensions of the default cube in Blender, we're going to see that this will be 2 meters. And actually, this will be the model that was imported, so shape index face set. If I will zoom out, we're going to see that the model will appear. But only over here we see a brief surface of that. This is because Blender by default is set to use meters, and it loaded a 3D scan, which was actually created in millimeters. It loaded it as meters. So all we have to do to scale it properly is to select the model, press S to enable the scaling, and I will type in from the numpad 0.001. And as soon as I do that, I don't even have to press enter. We're going to see that mesh at the proper scale. Again, as we saw on Artec website, this model has almost 4.5 meter tall monument. So that's the size. And we're going to see that now within Blender, this is at the correct size. Keep in mind that the default cube will be 2 meters, and this will tower above that. The main advantage within Blender is that the texture will load properly. So if I will enable over here viewport shading, now Blender has loaded that. So I'm just going to delete the cube in order to better visualize. And as you can see, this will be the diffuse map. So we don't have all the shadows that were added within Sketchfab over here. As we can see, currently I have this set to diffuse. So this is actually the same view that we have within Blender. But if I will go over here within the final render, we're going to see various highlights and shadows, for example, over here underneath the head. These were all added within the virtual scene within Sketchfab. So we can also control the environment, the lighting, and so on over there. We can do the same over here in Blender, but we need to add in those lights. But as we can see, let's analyze the texture quality over here. So this is how Blender will open it. As you can see, it will look just the same as what was captured by the scanner. But within CATIA, meanwhile, CATIA also opened this. So one element that we can see over here differently is that CATIA loaded this, and we have the model rotated like this. So its orientation will be z-axis going upwards. But for WRL, CATIA will not align those properly. So within Blender, again, we have the z-axis pointing upwards, and we see that the model was loaded over here properly. And if I will rotate over here, you're going to see that this will be a little bit laggy. And if I will move my mouse on top, this will try to do the selection, and we're going to have this highlighted in orange. If I will zoom in, we're going to see that CATIA texture stitching visualization is a little bit off, especially in V5. This is why I wanted to make this video, because I will open the same file within CATIA 3D experience, so the newer version, which is the online version. I currently don't have it installed on this computer, only on my laptop, and I want to make the video record using that. We see over here multiple areas where the texture has been not mapped properly. So we have all those, let's say, similar to black dots, which look like let's say small sections over here that were added on the texture. Other than that, we also have the following problem. If you want to work with this model, if I will just expand this Napoleon 1, we have a plus over here, so if I will expand it, that will just disappear. This is because within CATIA, we don't really have a lot of functionality working with WRL files. Most of the processing will be done within this workbench, so digital mockup optimizer workbench. And over here we can generate, for example, an offset of this surface, and this will convert the mesh to a surface within CATIA. Because over here, this is currently with texture. This is why I see the texture applied. If I will go to let's say shaded with smooth, the model will look like this. So this will be with smooth edges, this will be with edges. In this case, those edges are not visible because this is a mesh, this is not a surface model or a solid model. If I will go over here and check the wireframe, we're gonna see that this will be the wireframe. I will have to zoom in a little bit closer in order to see those triangles. And we see the mesh of vertices that are connected to define the mesh. So if I will change it back to texture, it will look like this. But again, the only workaround in order to convert this will be to initially have it decimated, because otherwise CATIA will struggle to have this processed, while for example Blender will process it a lot faster, and afterwards use the thickness over here. The other file format, which I will just minimize this. So the other file format available on the platform is the OBJ file format. We're gonna see the file size will be smaller. This is when archived, because OBJ files, they will archive better, because mostly 3D models are actually created by files that will have the coordinates for each point, so you can open those within a text editor, and that's what defines 3D models, especially meshes, because NURBS within software such as CATIA are managed differently. Now let's search for that folder, so Napoleon OBJ. We see over here, again, we have the license and we have the texture, which is the same file size, so 17.2 megabytes. It will also have the same resolution. So we see the dimension, the width over here, and the bit depth in this case. And we're gonna have the model. So the OBJ will only have 636 megabytes, while compared to the other, the WRL, which has 834. So the models are the same. If I will go within Blender, and if I will check to see the statistics, we're gonna see that this will have 6.7 million triangles. And if I will import the OBJ over here, so let's do that really fast over here, Napoleon OBJ, this will be the file, have it imported. So now Blender will start import that OBJ, and we see how fast Blender processed that. So I didn't speed up the video, I didn't do anything, Blender just opened that. So if I will select this one, we're gonna see the information over here. If I will select the other one, we're gonna see, so they will have the exact same number of elements. So let me just press numpad 0, this will zoom me out. And again, we have the same problem, this model is quite large, so I need to press S 0.001. Now I will press numpad to zoom in, and this will be the OBJ. We see that regarding the file orientation, this was imported a little bit differently. So we see the orientation. I will just grab it over here. And there are some changes regarding the material. So both models use the same texture. It's just that OBJ will add a metallic look to the model, so that can be further adjusted over here. As we can see over here, we're gonna have those materials, and this will have, let's say, a metallic aspect over here regarding that. So it's mostly a specular, so we can also tune that down, or we can change it, or we can just have this material recreated. So we see over here, this is a principal BSDF, which was converted by Blender. But I also have the possibility to just recreate the model. So if I will just delete those materials, this again is something that CATIA doesn't really manage. So you don't have access to the texture over there, you just see it, but you don't have access to it. So currently this model doesn't have any texture applied. We see over here none. I can click on new, and this will now create material 0.02. I can jump between texture shading over here, so not texture painting, shading. And over here I can just drag and drop the texture. We see this will be that. I just need to link the base color over here, and now this will have the same look as the one from the WRL. So those materials will be similar. If I'm going to check over here the shading, this, which is for the WRL, will have the same structure as the one that I created now. So we see this is that model or material. If I will click on this one, this will be material. This has the name shape as it has been imported from the WRL, and this will be 0.02, which was created now. And we see regarding the visualization, they will look the same. So maybe you have some highlights over there on the horse, which are a little bit white, but that's also from the viewport over here. And within CATIA, with OBJ, if I will try to drag and drop this, you're gonna see that nothing will happen. If I will try it again the same, just like with the WRL, so I will create a new product, file new product. I I will select the product, insert. I will say that I want to insert an existing component, which I know is on my desktop and is the Napoleon OBJ. We can see that I can select over here, because if we're gonna check the file formats that can be added, we're gonna see over here. So mostly these are from CATIA, these are from Pro Engineering, Creo, Solid Edge, older version of CATIA, and we're also gonna have the OBJ over here. So I will select the OBJ, I will hit open, and now we're gonna see that CATIA will start to process this. Keep in mind that I did the same within Blender. It opened in a few seconds over there, so on the same PC. Within this video I didn't did any speed up because I want to show why CATIA can be used within Cultural Heritage and what are the main limitations of CATIA V5. So this will slowly process. Meanwhile, since I don't want to do any editing and speed up of the video, I just want to discuss some other aspects. So if you want to work on this model, for example, you want to do some editing, some trimming, within Blender we can easily do that directly on the vertices, but within CATIA it's mostly recommended to work with an STL. So I will just select one of the meshes over here. For example, this one created from the OBJ. I will go to File, Export, and I want to export this as an STL file directly on the desktop. I will name this Napoleon. And I only want to include the selections of this model. Otherwise, everything will be taken from Blender. So I have that exported. Now, CATIA managed to import this, as you can see over here. But again, if I will expand this, nothing will happen and this will be the element. But as you can see over here, the texture hasn't been applied. So within the WRL, CATIA knew how to import this and how to address the color. Now we just have this green color over here. So the model has loaded, as we can see. So it loaded a little bit faster than expected, to be honest. But again, we don't have the texture, which is really important, even though we mostly use this for visualization. But there are some techniques that can be later used in order to do some color 3D printing. Now, if I want to edit this, again, we need to use the digital mockup optimizer workbench to work with this OBJ. We also have the possibility to go within shape, imagine and shape, and we can import an OBJ as a subdivision over there. But keep in mind that the model should not be complex. So if I will try to do this over here, it will crash most likely. So let me just show you how that will go, but I know it won't go because usually you need low geometrical elements. So the only workaround for this would be to work with the STL files. We have the possibility to decimate it both within CATIA but both within Blender. So I can just apply a modifier over here. I can search for decimate and I can make use of the collapse method over here. So I can add a ratio of 0.1. That will just make this almost from 3.3 million vertices down to 10% on that. So 340,000 over here. So let's see. Now Blender will start to process. Since CATIA is also working in the background, it will take a little bit of time also for Blender, since the resources are not that high. Even though we see over here that the processor will only be used at 2.7 in this case. But I'm sure that Blender will leave this not responding state and will do this decimation, while CATIA, as I try to impose a subdivision, will just crash because this is something that is not intended to be done. And this is why you need to open the files differently. And this is why it's also a good idea to use STL files, because those will import Now I will just start a new session over here of CATIA because I want to open that STL. And if you're not familiar with how to work with STLs, I have a lot of videos on my channel regarding this. So a new session of CATIA will start. It loaded on the second screen. I will just move it. So we see Blender managed to do this simplification over here. It's no longer in not responding state, but it's still processing. But afterwards, you're gonna see that the model will lose a lot of details since this has been simplified by a large ratio of 0.1. So there are a lot of decimated vertices. Now I have CATIA open over here, and in order to work on this, it would be just wise to go within Digital Shapeator. So since both Blender and the other CATIA is working, this will move a little bit slower, but it's still gonna move. Keep in mind that also CATIA doesn't use multi-cores. So if you have multiple processor cores, especially CATIA V5, you can just start a new session and you can work with that. So over here we should have the Napoleon STL, which is this one. I will click OK. For the scale factor, if I will leave this to 1, since this was exported from Blender, this will be small. So I will just add 10,000. I will hit apply and we're gonna have that model started to be imported. So we see this is also a little bit not responding, but again, since CATIA doesn't use multi-cores, it managed to open this over here. So we see the model and we can start work with this because this will be imported as a mesh and as an editable mesh, and we have dedicated workbenches to work within this, such as Digital Shapeator, and there is also Shape Sculptor. We can go to properties, and if I will change the display mode to not be smooth, if I will go to vertex, for example, we're gonna see that this will be the point cloud. So we see over here the profile of the nose and everything acquired by the 3D scanner. If I will zoom in on the head of the horse, again, we're gonna see over here a lot of details. So this is not an homogeneous point cloud. We're gonna have, we can also do some filtering over here, but that will not be required because we wanna keep all of those. I will enable again the smooth shading over here, and yeah, from here now on we can start work with this. And we see that within the STL we have all of those details that we had within the other file formats, but the main important aspect is that this is editable, so we can easily convert this to a surface and even a closed body. And we're gonna see that this mesh will actually have at the bottom over here we have a huge gap, and we're gonna see how we can address that in order to fill it in. Now let's take a look if over here, so for the subdivision this is still not responding, and from my experience I know that this will not load. I just wanted to show that you can add OBJs as within Imagine and Shape, but this should be mainly as some reference on primitives, not a lot of details. If I would decimate this a lot within Blender, so we see that this will be the decimated model. We see over here, if I will zoom in towards the profile of this will now have a lot of small triangles. And the model that has not been decimated, we're gonna see that the profile of the nose will not have all of those triangles. Actually, it will have some smaller ones, but those will give a lot of details over here. We also have a triangle over here on the lip. But onto the decimated model, those will be a lot large. So if I will go with 0.01, you're gonna see that the mesh will be decimated more heavily, and we're gonna lose a lot of details. But at the same time, we're gonna have a mesh that is smaller, and that can be in some cases added as an editable within CATIA. Okay, so Let me know in the comment section if you enjoy this kind of content. I know that the video is longer, but I wanted to address this. So CATIA V5 used within cultural heritage. And as I said, I will make a video with CATIA 3D experience, and we're going to see the changes that have been added over there in order to offer, let's say, a better workflow. So I hope you enjoy this kind of content. I will position a similar video over here on the left side, and I will also add a subscribe button to the right. So that's it. Thanks for watching.